I'll turn it over to the panel, and I guess I'll let each person introduce themselves.
I'm Danica Olson. I am an accounting instructor at the Milwaukee Area Technical College, and my background is I went to Marquette, and then I studied for the CPA exam, went back and got a master's degree in human resource management, spent 20 years in just corporate accounting. I was the accounting director for the Milwaukee Bucks, and then an opportunity came up to teach full-time, so that is what I'm doing now.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brett Killion. I also graduated from UW-Madison back in 1999 with my bachelor's in accounting, and then the next year with my master's of accountancy degree. I started my career at Grant Thornton as an auditor in Madison, and realized pretty quickly, only after 9 months, that just the public accounting realm wasn't for me. My dad was a high school teacher for 30 years. I've been coaching sports ever since I was a junior in high school and just loved being in the classroom. So went back to school, got my teaching certification, was a high school teacher at Luxembourg-Casco High School for 8 years, and that's where I came to this conference sitting where you are for many years, learning how to better techniques for teaching our students in the high school program accounting. And then an opportunity opened up at Lakeland where I applied for it, and luckily I was at a conference just a couple months earlier where I got to meet a couple Lakeland faculty members, and a long story short, I was able to get the position there because I had my CPA and master's at the time. So I'm now in my 6th year as an accounting professor at Lakeland. I teach financial accounting principles, managerial accounting principles, intermediate 1 and 2, advanced 1 and 2, and accounting information systems. So I teach a wide variety of classes, and just very nice to be back with all of you today.
Hi, I'm Wendy Potratz, and I'm part of the accounting faculty at UW-Oshkosh. I started out in public accounting. I actually got my undergraduate degree at UW-Oshkosh, and I worked for what is now Baker Tilly for 4 years, and then I decided that I really enjoyed teaching. I had some opportunities to work with small business, do some training, do some presenting. Really enjoyed that. Went back and got my MBA, and I started my first full-time experience was with Marian College, now Marian University. I was there for 13 years, taught everything. I understand how that works. I then went part-time and worked for UW-Fox, which is one of our 2-year universities, and actually in computer science. I needed a break from accounting. And now I am back full-time for the past 10 years at UW-Oshkosh. I'm the advisor of our accounting club. I love doing that. I love teaching. I'm also still a practitioner. So that is actually my thing, is that I work with the practitioners and I work with the students, and I unite them through accounting club. So thank you for having me here.
So I think kind of the goal today is keep it kind of an open format. I do have some questions that were previously submitted. I'll probably start with a couple of those, but then pretty much open it up to the audience, so whatever questions or concerns or things they would like to ask the panel. I guess just starting off, a pretty simple question. I guess how can high school students today kind of prepare for the college accounting? Well, you want to one person grab it, or we'll just hand it right down the line?
Yeah, I think an important part, being a high school teacher at one point, is trying to expose your students more than just the textbook chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, and debits and credits. I still believe now at the high school level, correct me if I'm wrong, but for accounting 1, it's typically either like Glencoe or Century 21. Is that still correct? And I remember when I was teaching high school accounting, we'd still go through the chapters, but try to supplement it with, as much as possible, some projects that made students analyze accounting information versus just being the creators of accounting information. One example that I heard at the lunch table, a pretty cool example, was there was, I believe it was Chris from Cousin Subs, said that he partnered with the teacher from Slinger High School last year, where their group had to create their own signature sub. They had to cost it out, and then they went to Cousin Subs and presented the costs of making that sub to the management team. And I think real-world experiences like that is invaluable. I remember when I first started teaching, I was at Barnes & Noble reading a book on teaching, and there's a quote that stuck with me saying, the textbook is not the curriculum. It's part of the curriculum, but it's not just the curriculum, and trying to throw in some real-life projects in addition to chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I guess one quick example that we try to do at Lakeland is in our Intermediate Accounting 1 class, the students' final exam, we actually go out to Schenck in Sheboygan. I partnered with one of their partners in the office, and we came up with this practice set where students are put into groups. They're given this about 2 weeks ahead of time, and they're given a fake company, and we call it Sheboygan Hardware, a hardware company, and their financial statements are completely messed up. they're given source documents and they have to fix all the accounting errors. They have to redo the financial statements, and then part of their final exam, we actually go to Schenck during the final exam period, and they present to their management team, hey, here's what was wrong, here's how we fixed it, and here's how you can make your Sheboygan hardware business better in the future. And I think those analytical skills and those real-world experiences are just as important, if not more important, than the textbook.
And I guess I would add to that the curriculum surrounding the accounting courses. I know that we don't use trig, we don't use calculus in accounting, add, subtract, multiply, divide. But I do think that having those math skills really helps the students with their analytical process, deductive, the whole logic flow. So, you know, promoting the fact that it's not going to be math for the sake of math, but if they can go in with the mindset of the fact that they're learning some skills that are going to be applicable, maybe not just even in their accounting courses, but beyond that, we find that the students that come in with those kind of connections, the ability to make those connections, they succeed.
Yeah, if you can encourage them to be able to explain the process and not just do the process. I find that some of my students are really good at, if I tell them these are the 10 journal entries, they can replicate them, but they can't explain why they did them. So if you can encourage them to like see the bigger picture of what you're doing, and I agree too. You have to have math, but it's, you know, if an owner invests $20,000, there isn't a lot of math in that. It's the what do I do with it.
And I would kind of second that. Throughout my career, I actually used to do recruiting. We always tended to find some accountants that are very logical and very straightforward. They get good at doing steps 1 to 10, but the ones that succeed are the ones that understand the why and the how and kind of see the big picture of the process. And those are the really, when I was in public accounting or now in my current career, those are the ones you want and you want to bring. You don't want the person that gets struggles once step 6 isn't there anymore or they have to do something differently. You want the ones that can see the big picture and be able to kind of analyze the approach to it.
I guess maybe one specific example I'll throw in is that for those of you that teach through the Century 21 textbook, I think it's right around chapter like 7 or 8 is when they introduce like worksheets, how to do a worksheet. And obviously as a high school student, you complete the worksheet, but then what I tried to do with my students a couple years ago was give them a finished worksheet that had like 8 or 9 errors in it, and they had to go back in and fix it and try to find those errors and try to understand, kind of going backwards through their process. Because when I met with the partner at Schenck, he mentioned a lot of his, on his job, they have smaller companies that come to Schenck saying, our books, we think that they're incorrect, please, you know, fix that for us. And we're trying to put the students in the same shoes as maybe somebody at Schenck trying to fix maybe those accounting balance sheets and income statements that are incorrect and trying to get them to what they should be.
Great. Just another question to follow up on, I guess, how do you see technology being used in your classroom, and more specifically, I guess, what type of software products are you also using?
In the classroom, I don't have my students do things necessarily with technology in the classroom. Now, we've got a new Sage Hall. I've got all the lecture things, all the bells and whistles you could want, but I tend to work with, I create my own handout sheets that they buy the booklet for cost, and as I'm going through and I'm explaining theory, they're doing some problems, pencil to paper. I really think that pencil to paper is an important thing. They're doing pencil to paper, we're building that in with the theory. Then, when they're on their own, we use we use Connect, we use Wiley Plus, we use any matter of the course materials, the online course materials that go with the text. They use Excel. They have to create PowerPoints for presentations. We're big on making sure that we have presenting opportunities, writing opportunities in the classes. So they use all of those things. We have some simulations in a couple of the classes. So there's a variety of things. But in the classroom, don't have them do too much. In fact, I don't let them have their cell phones out. In college.
I would say we use the same technology, although I teach the capstone class at MATC, so we are doing an entire project that is just on QuickBooks. There isn't any pen and paper, because the goal of my class is they've learned everything, and now we are working in our pretend business, and they come every week, and they're working on a month or 2 worth of transactions and preparing financial statements, and everything is through QuickBooks and the reporting. So. Oh, yes, Erin, we do. We have a class at MATC where we offer, the students take QuickBooks and then they become certified in QuickBooks, and we also do it for Excel.
Just a couple examples in our classes. I try to weave in Excel every once in a while. I know a lot of you do a Monopoly simulation at the high school level, and I try to do the same thing with our Intermediate Accounting 1 class at the college level, but we make it a little bit more complex for college level students. But they end up doing all their books in Excel for that project. We use Sage 50 accounting software in our Accounting Information Systems class, which is similar to QuickBooks. At the end of that class, they do a pivot tables project trying to get used to Excel. That's one thing I like about the smaller class sizes. I, again, graduated from UW-Madison, and now my average class size at Lakeland is about 15 students, is that I can take them on quite a few field trips. And last year, we took a field trip to Johnsonville. We walked past a bunch of cubicles in their finance department, and they've got their double screens, and you go through a lot of them, and both screens have Excel on it. Same thing, we did a field trip to Kohler 2 years ago, and walking past some of their cubicles, both screens have Microsoft Excel, so trying to throw that every once in a while into the curriculum. We use something in our Tax 2 class called Pro Series, which is a tax software. As part of our VITA program, we use Tax Slayer starting this year, which it's nice for students to get used to some type of tax software because they might punch in all the information. It might spit out, hey, this person's refund is like $5,000, but if they make like one check mark incorrect here or there, it could completely throw out their return. So going back to the analytical skills, yes, the computer will do the math for you, but can you actually make sense that according to this person's tax situation, should their refund really be X amount of dollars? And then in our Forensic Accounting 2 class, they use something called IDEA software that helps try to detect patterns and trends in their finance, in their accounting books.
I would encourage you, if you can use Excel, the more you can use it, the better experience your accounting students will have, because I think if you're going to be an accountant, you need to use Excel. And so if there's any little tiny piece of your curriculum that you can dedicate, even if they're doing things by hand and then putting it in Excel, I think that will really help them.
So each one of you mentioned Excel a little bit, and it seems like a lot of the high schools are moving towards more Google Docs and things like that. Do you see that being a challenge or whatever? And I guess everybody here could probably weigh into that more. I assume Google Docs being free, Excel being a cost many times.
I don't know, Office 365 is free to MATC students. So.
I was going to say, yeah, Office is free for students.
Yeah, it's free
so.
for students. But no, I mean, really, Google Docs and Excel is fairly similar. It's you being able to use a spreadsheet because, well, I think they need to understand the concepts on pen and paper. Nobody does anything on pen and paper. It's all computerized.
We actually have a 3-credit course, Quantitative Business Analysis, that all of our business students take extensively with Excel, pivot tables, and also Access. Access is something that's not used to its full potential, and being able to understand what should be done in Access, what should be done in Excel, and import and export those things, have them work together. It's great. The students don't like the class when they're in it, but we get feedback their senior year and then 2 years after their senior year, and this isn't just the accountants. They all come back and say, this is what sets me apart. It's very important. So starting them early, it's great.
It's better than what I did. I think in Madison I learned how to program in Pascal or something like that. So I can't
Fortran.
Can't say I ever used it after that or whatever. But I think I'll open it up to the audience if there's other questions that we have. Anybody? If not, I can continue. The question? Okay. So currently right now to become a CPA, there's 150 credits required, or there's Masters of Accounting programs. I guess, how do each one of you kind of weigh in those type of things, those situations?
I can speak to that. I think that, and this is from talking more with our professionals, they really want the students to do what's attractive to the students. So a student will come in and say, should I get a double major, finance and accounting? No, you should not. You should if you like finance. But if you don't like finance, don't get a double major in finance. If you want to explore more in the area of art, if you want to explore supply chain, if you want to learn a foreign language, if you have a passion for it, that's what the 150-hour rule was meant for, is to expand, is to be more well-rounded. So We encourage our students to do what they want to do, what feels best for them. And again, talking to professionals, professionals are not going to hire somebody because they have a double major in finance versus an array of courses in some other areas that they have interest. They're going to hire them because of the networking and some of the things we'll probably talk about with another question. As far as the 150 undergrad versus MBA, my personal opinion is give them a choice, because those graduate credits are expensive and not every student wants to go that route. Again, talking to the professionals, at least in the Valley, they don't care if it's an MBA or not an MBA. So the students have to decide what's important to me. Is the cost benefit worth it based on what I want to do in the future?
Yeah, I agree with Wendy 100%. I think that we have to try to tailor each plan to each different student and their interests. So, and I would agree with you as well. Nowadays, college is very expensive. And at Lakeland, we have a lot of first-generation college students where we might give them the option of, let's pursue an MBA right after your bachelor's. But a lot of times they come back to me and say, well, I'm already $30,000 in student loan debt. The graduate credits are much more expensive than the bachelor's degree. Let me start actually working and earning a paycheck. So at Lakeland, we have very few students pursue their master's like right after their bachelor's just because of their financial situation. So a lot of times we'll try to find some sort of other way to get them to 150 credits, whether it's finding a double major in their interest area. One thing at Lakeland that we offer is hospitality management, which a lot of other colleges don't. And actually, one of our top students about 3 years ago, she now works for PricewaterhouseCoopers in Milwaukee. She had a double major in accounting and hospitality management, got 150 credits in 4 years because her dream job was being a CPA at a Las Vegas casino, which, hey, that was her interest level. But as of right now, she's now in her third year at PwC in Milwaukee as a tax manager. So just trying to find that tailored plan to each student, I think, is very valuable versus just trying to pigeonhole students saying all of you, pursue the Master's of Accountancy or all of you get a double major in accounting and finance.
And I think that's a good way to encourage the high school students to major in accounting, but then think of what else they can partner with. I mean, I myself have a master's degree in human resource management because after the CPA exam, was tired of taking accounting classes, and I did want to take something else. And I thought about how accounting fit in with other master's programs. And under human resources, you have payroll, and you have 401k and benefit and pension planning. And so I thought that would be a good partnership. And I agree. If you have an interest in IT or you have an interest in hospitality, that encourages them to stick with that accounting degree, but yet partner it with something that they're interested in, because every industry needs an accountant. So if you're interested in being in the Las Vegas casino, or, I mean, when I worked at the Milwaukee Bucks, everyone just thought it was the most glamorous job on earth, but at the end of the day, the bank reconciliation was just still the same. It's just that we sold basketball. So yes, it was very exciting, but it didn't matter. It was just the industry needed an accountant.
Going off of what Danica just mentioned, I had a student in my office last year. She's an accounting major. She was on our soccer team, and she had a minor in hospitality management. She told me that her passion was traveling. She loved to travel, and she was up for an internship opportunity. And I guess the long story short was we connected her with a Lakeland alumni that ran a resort in Alaska. So her summer internship wasn't at like our local CPA firm. She worked half front desk, half accounting up in this resort in Sitka, Alaska. She had all of her travel paid for. I think she only had to pay like $75 a week for lodging. But that was just one example of trying to find each student's passion and interest, and not say, it's only audit and tax at a CPA firm. Let's find an area that you're going to be passionate about, and that was something that she'll remember for the rest of her life.
And that is something nice to see it kind of change. Because I think initially when the 150-hour rule came out, a lot of the schools defaulted to just making their accounting program now 150 credits or whatever. So now it's kind of going back to what it really was intended, to get a more well-rounded student, where you had very good accountants, but they weren't exposed to all the other areas. As I've been talking to college students many times, and they don't know what they want to do to get the 150, I've always encouraged some type of technology, because that is something, as technology continues to grow, you get involved with so much, especially in a private company where we have things where we're working with our subcontractors. They actually log into a cloud-based software program, enter all their invoices, and we actually have that interact with our accounting software. So you've got so many partners that you're working with, and the accounting person is usually the person in charge of implementing that software product, where in the past you'd think that would just be a kind of your IT person. That isn't the case anymore, as these things have becoming more ingrained with the accounting systems out there. So it's something I've always told them, you can't lose with more technology.
Right. And I think the best thing you guys can do is to take your students on field trips, not just to the CPA firms, but like you guys were saying, like the Sargentos and the Harley Davidsons, and I myself went up to Lambeau Field, and we went and toured the accounting department, but of course got to stand on the field. I think when you get the students seeing that accounting isn't just sitting in the cube, it's working in an industry that they have a passion for, that can ignite their excitement for accounting, if there can be excitement.
Any questions from the audience, or should I continue on my script? All right. I guess having high school students myself, it seems like there's a big push now for AP classes out there, where it's constantly, I want to come into school being a second semester freshman or something like that. I guess what advice or what encouragement could you offer that would say, how do you get them to maybe take, if it's just an elective class in accounting, as opposed to a fifth year of AP Spanish in comparison?
Well, I polled my students this morning. I taught 2 classes of seniors, senior and super seniors in college before I came this morning. I didn't know the answer. And you know what they said? They said, have them offer CAP or AP. They really feel that maybe if we could get more partnerships with the universities and the high schools to offer those classes together for college credit, that's what they came back to me with. They said it's pretty hard when you're competing against something that's going to give you college credit. And I wrote down a bunch of notes. I'm going to go back to my department. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not like, well, here's an idea, slam dunk. But I'm going to go back to my apartment and say, maybe this is something we really need to pursue, and I would love to pursue it. I would love to make those connections. So that's not really the answer to the question that you were posing, but it's the answer that my students gave.
Right, and I know at MATC we do have agreements with several high schools where they do take accounting and that will transfer to MATC as credits. And I think the hardest thing, and I get the whole AP thing, but I think we have to start, and I know it's harder as educators, but it's more as parents, is thinking about the high cost of college. And I know my brother, for example, thought he was going to be a mechanical engineer and then didn't like it and switched to nursing. So there's a whole semester of college that didn't count because it's not the same, in the same classes. So if you can take accounting or any business class in high school and see if you even like it, because I personally, as an accounting major at Marquette, never took a single science class. So AP biology would not have helped. Maybe it would have been 3 elective credits, but it really wouldn't have helped me in my accounting career and the credits I needed to graduate. So if there's any way you can say, like, a high school is the chance to figure out what you want to major in college, this is your opportunity, and it might be worth it.
And I know exactly the situation you're facing, because when I was at Luxembourg Casco High School, my best year ever as far as enrollment was in my Accounting 1 class. Our total school enrollment was about 675, was about our high school. And my best year ever for Accounting 1 was about 75 students. And then they implemented weighted grades for AP classes, and I started seeing my enrollment slowly going down each year. And the best way I was able to combat that was, I guess, 2 things. At that time, I was the varsity girls basketball coach, and knowing a lot of the middle schoolers coming to high school and a lot of the girls on our freshman and JV teams, I think just that personal connection that you have with students, if you know them really well, and they're like, hey, we think we kind of sort of like Mr. Killion, maybe we'll go ahead and give him a chance and take his Accounting 1 class our junior year. Or using some of your introductory business classes as feeder classes for your accounting program. So if you have a freshman in intro business and they're doing really well, trying to encourage them to give at least Accounting 1 a chance and see what happens. And I think also just trying to find ways to make your accounting classes fun and exciting. And that's where I get jealous as a college educator, where I used to do a lot of fun and creative stuff being a high school teacher, because I had the students for an entire year and I saw them Monday through Friday. Now I'm picturing my advanced accounting class. I've got 11 chapters to get through in 15 weeks, and I see them on every Tuesday and Thursday. And I don't have a lot of time to try to, be creative with a lot of these different projects. Where I think already, just from talking with a lot of you these last couple of years, you're doing that already, making it fun and exciting, and that's a draw for students to take your classes in their junior and senior year as well.
I just came up with an idea, so try this on. One of the things that I told you that I serve as the advisor for our accounting club, and we go into some area high schools with the students and talk to them about accounting. and about the college experience, and it's fun, and the students open up, and they love it. If we could do that same thing, but not with people already in the class, if there was a venue that we could bring the students in and talk to them about accounting and talk to them about the career opportunities and college, then that larger audience might go, I think I want to take an accounting class in high school. It would, I don't know exactly what shape or form that would take, but that's an idea that I think that I will explore with the high schools I already have connections with in the Oshkosh area. You can tell me if it'll work. We'll talk later.
And actually, through the Accounting Careers Committee, we've gone into high schools to talk about careers in accounting. It's the one thing, as I've done in the past, I always kind of compare it to going into an ice cream shop. In a career in accounting, like Danica said before, every single company out there needs to have somebody either that works for them or associated with them that's an accountant. So there is always going to be a demand. I don't think you're ever going to see a time where accounting drops out of the top 10 potential careers in the future. And what's neat about, and I myself, as I said, went into public accounting, I always compare that you get to actually kind of touch each flavor and taste each one of a wide variety of industries. And what it tends to ultimately happen in accounting, you tend to decide, I really like this industry, or I like teaching, or I like doing certain things, and you kind of find yourself going down that path. Or some people do enjoy being in public accounting, and that's where their careers ultimately lead them. But it's kind of like an endless opportunity. I've known so many people that have started in accounting, and now they either work for their own home building company, or they started something else. So you kind of, it leads you down a path, and you ultimately find your career with that. And like I said, it's almost endless opportunities. So I think that's something that's always been exciting to the high school students out there, and that's where it's kind of neat to get to the ones that maybe don't know where they want to go and have that exposure. Another question, we kind of touched on this a little bit before, but I guess what are some of the majors and minors students are combining with an accounting degree, and I guess what type of jobs do they ultimately get with those degrees?
Our business program is a little bit different at Lakeland. We don't have a lot of minors. We have a lot of what we call emphasis areas where, so here's a major, here's a minor, and an emphasis area is maybe like an extra 4 classes in a certain interest level. And I think our students really enjoy that because they don't have to take a ton of extra classes, but they try to pursue something that they're interested in. So some of our Lakeland students, they might do a double major in accounting and management information systems. They might do a forensic accounting emphasis if they want to go more into the auditing route. Every once in a while, this is not too often, but with our forensic accounting emphasis, you might have a double major in accounting and criminal justice. But we do have a finance emphasis as well that we have a couple students pursuing, and I think half of our student body at Lakeland is student athletes. A lot of students come to Lakeland for different sports areas, so they end up, a couple students that I have, they end up doing like an emphasis in sports management just because they enjoy it. And we had a student graduate a couple years ago that he's now an accountant for like a minor league basketball team in like North Dakota. So again, just back to what Wendy mentioned before, is trying to find areas that they're most interested in and trying to tailor the plan to their interest areas.
So I think that you have to have a solid accounting program, and I can't think of a school within the state that doesn't have a solid accounting program. So our emphasis has been on, again, what we hear from the employers. They want people that can talk, that can think on their feet. So our encouragement is every business student, including our accountants, they have to have at least one internship experience. In our geographic area, our accounting firms, our corporations are used to that. Our accounting students have no problem getting internships. They don't do just one. Almost all of them do 2. They'll do something corporate, private, they'll do public. Some of them will do 3. So they get these choices. They can see, well, did I like this? Did I like this? Did I like this kind of atmosphere? That kind of atmosphere. That's one thing. But the other thing that's so important is the ability to network. So we start early on. Actually, they have to be admitted to the School of Business. So their junior year, we have a networking event. And they have to go to it their junior year. And it is, there's food, there's businesses. We try to set it up as an actual networking where you have to sort of balance your plate and tray. And they have some prep classes ahead of time, but they're out there and they're talking to the businesses. Then after that, it is optional. All of our accounting students, just about, go to the optional ones afterwards because they see the importance. In accounting club, we just had our CPA night. And we had 150 people there, a large amount of professionals, a lot of alums, and the idea of being able to eat and talk and use the right fork and not do anything horrible. Starting early on with that, with the ability to be able to talk, to be able to converse, those are the things that the professionals say, you know, they'll come out of the schools with the good skills. They need to have those networking, the talking, the ability to think on their feet.
Anything else to add to that at all?
I would encourage your students to do presentations. I mean, my students hate it, and they also hate working in groups, but I think that's also important. And you have your really type A students that feel like they have to do the whole project themselves or they won't get 100. But I think, like, even, from the beginning, like, you don't get to work by yourself generally. You have coworkers, you have people that have deliverables that you're waiting on. And so if you can encourage them to work, even if it's not, like a graded project, but if it's something just, once a week in class that they have to get together and analyze maybe something and then present it to the class, their findings, just getting them comfortable communicating in front of a group, I think will be really helpful for them.
Yeah, I think it's very important. And one thing, when I was in public accounting, we'd always bring either interns in or new hires in, and it sometimes was a struggle because you'd be going out to maybe a client and doing an audit of their financial statements, and they're sometimes interacting with the CFO of this company who's been working on this organization for the last 10 years, and they're going to have to ask questions, and intelligent questions, and many times it's just not asking the question, it's being able to have a conversation back and forth to understand and almost think on your feet a little bit more. So it's very important to have those interpersonal skills that you develop throughout the high school and college career.
I think another thing that would be helpful in high schools is to have them write professional emails to clients, because I think we've just gotten away so much from, and in my class, I have to write in the syllabus that when you email me, it needs to be a professional email and that it shouldn't be a text message, like, the letter U instead of, and I know it seems so, like, why would you do that? But it's true, that's how they communicate with their friends, and I think raising the professionalism to say an assignment literally is you need to email me professionally about something you found in the financial statements or whatever would help them with their accounting skills.
Yeah, we actually have to have training classes on communications. I mean, we actually do it in our company, just when to use a text, when to use an email, when to call the phone, because people tend to like to text and they like that non-confrontational approach, where they should be calling or they should go and talking to the person that's across the hall from them, as opposed to sending a text to the person they can actually see physically across the hall. So it's something that you almost have to re-engineer some people that way. What would you say is the best things, I guess, a high school student can do now to kind of prepare themselves for that, maybe that first day or first college accounting course?
I would say they need to understand that there are deadlines, and it's important to meet the deadlines. I think I'm amazed with my students. They're like, "Oh, I didn't know that was actually the real deadline." I'm like, "Okay, if you're going to be an accountant, there are deadlines." In my class, I'm very harsh about deadlines because I teach at the capstone level, and I dock, it's like 25% off if it's late for 5 minutes or 5 days, and then after 7 days, I don't take anything late, and I think that's a good thing to implement because in accounting, there are deadlines, they're real deadlines. Financial statements need to be published, and tax filings need to be done by the deadline, so it's important to enforce those deadlines. And I think the other thing is just time management. I think when you get to college, you have so much free time that you forget that you actually need to not start doing your homework at midnight and realize you don't know how to do it, and then you email your professor. And I'm not online at midnight to answer the question. So just kind of thinking about what your week is going to look like and how you're going to plan your time would help you be successful.
I just have a question. One of the things that is happening now at my school, and I don't know about anyone else's, is this whole idea of reassessment. So,
What?
a reassessment. So, what does that look like at the collegiate level, or does that even, it even exist?
Can you explain what
Does that mean grading things twice?
That means that if a student does not perform well on an assessment, that they have the right to request to be reassessed.
Oh dear, no.
That sounds like grading twice.
Well, I'm going to address that from a different point of view. Yeah.
I would really like your input on this
So here's one of the projects that I do in my government class is they work with a not-for-profit, and then they create financial analysis. It goes to the allocations committee of the Oshkosh Area United Way and also to the NFP. And I was running into the trouble of that. If they handed it in and it wasn't great, I didn't have a stick after that to have them fix it. So in some ways, that regrading can be very effective. And I've built it in now so that the first time they hand it in, they get graded on it, okay? And I will give comments. These are the things that were wrong. This is what your grade is. Then they can fix those. They don't bring their grade up, but they get points for fixing them, and they lose points for not fixing them. This does two things. First of all, I think that it creates a better learning, because if they just get something marked wrong, they may not understand why. It's not going to make a point. The fact that they have to go back out now and fix it, that's a great learning loop. So I don't know, it doesn't necessarily allow somebody to do horrible and then bring their grade up. That's not the point of it. But if we can look at that as a positive and set up the rubric that way, most of the points are the first time in, and then they get that second try. I think it's a great learning tool, and I think that it could be used then to say, I am giving you 2 chances. It's just that the first chance is worth 80%, so you better try hard the first chance. Is it a lot more work? Yeah. And what I had to do in this course is I cut out another assignment that took a lot of grading on my part, and I said, you know what? I'm going to focus on this. I'm going to bring more things into this assignment because I think the learning potential is so important here that I'm going to focus my efforts here.
I actually use the retakes and reassessments in most of my accounting classes. Back about 7 or 8 years, about 4 or 5 years ago, I read a book by the creator of the Khan Academy, and he was mentioning the benefits of mastery learning, where you give a student a chance to try, fail, relearn, and try again, versus just taking an exam and treating it as a gotcha moment, where, hey, midterm exam number 1 is 20% of your grade, it's on chapters 1 through 5, and all of a sudden if they don't do well and they score, let's say, a 70%, they're kind of locked into that 70% the rest of the way. So I structure my classes a little bit differently. I use a flipped classroom approach where I've created online video tutorials. They watch outside of class. When they come on in, we do more individual or group work. But then with each, compared to a typical college class where you might have midterm, final, I have it set up where students take a test after every single chapter. It was a lot of work up front, but now it's all computerized, so it actually saves me time now. I use a very tighter grading scale because, hey, if I'm giving you 2 or 3 different attempts, and A is not like a 92% or above, A is like a 96% and above. And I like that format because I want my students to, if they struggle with chapter 1, I think all we know, everything in accounting builds off each other. So if you don't understand chapter 1, good luck with the rest of the course. So I'd rather have them, hey, here's your chapter 1 test. Oh, you only scored a 72%. Relearn the material, do a retake. Now they get maybe like an 84. They try one more time, they get a 92. And now I don't have them lost after chapter 1. They can actually now keep on going in the course. I do it through a computerized program, so I don't have to grade them. As soon as they press enter, they know their score. And I don't know. I think the benefits that I've found in the last couple of years, I don't have more A's than I used to have in the past. But just the way that my grading structure is set up, very rarely do I have like low C's, D's, and F's in my class. A lot of the D's have become C's, a lot of the C's have become B's because it's really helped the struggling students that need that extra practice. So I actually end up using that in my classes.
I think there's, and maybe there aren't as many tools in the high school book, but some of the college, like Wiley has got a great program called Learn Smart, and you can actually assign it. And it really forces them to actually read the chapter because they have to like go through it. And you can set up your assessments so that they literally can't even do their homework until the Learn Smart has been done. And I've seen a huge improvement in just it, and it grades itself as well. And same with the homework. I think where like certain homework assignments, I set up in the computer and I let them take it more than once. So your high achievers, even if they get a 92, are going to take it again to get to the 100. And the students that don't care will just kind of say, all right, that's fine. But at least they have the opportunity. They can take it more than once. They can check their work, X number of times, depending on what class it is, because, more check their works if it's something more complicated. And less of it should be just a journal entry. So I think there's a lot of computerized tools that I know that we're probably using that forces
Right.
that learning. So in my mind, by the time they get to a test, that they should know it, and I don't build, if you fail one test, there's so many other points and other assessments that it shouldn't bring your whole grade down. It's not like, oh, your whole grade is 4 tests, and now that's it. So I try to build it around the point structure around a lot of different assessments so that they have the best opportunity to succeed.
I guess when I have a colleague of mine come up to me and say, oh, you're too easy of an instructor, you give them like 3 different chances on a test. And I'm like, well, picture like driving tests in the United States. How many of us like actually failed our first driving test and you couldn't get another chance to take your driver's test? I think a lot of us wouldn't be able to drive today. Even the CPA exam, you've got multiple attempts at the CPA exam. You got multiple attempts at trying to improve your ACT score to get into the college of your choice. So there's a lot of other realms in our world that allow you to do better, learn from your mistakes, and try again. And that's my argument as far as letting them do that.
I think the thing is, do the students take the opportunity? I feel like there's a lot of opportunity I give. Even if you were to give extra points, I find that any time a class as a whole is struggling with something, I'll say, here's an extra review to do, and you can earn a few extra points. Unfortunately, my students that are already getting an A are the ones that do these things with the extra points. I don't, so I try to help, but you can only lead the horse to the water.
All right, we only have a couple minutes left. I guess I want to kind of leave it with, if you could give like a 30-second elevator speech to the audience here that they could take back to their students to get them excited about a career in accounting, what would that be? What would be the best opportunity or the most exciting thing?
The most exciting thing about a career in accounting is you can be whatever you want to be. And I don't think there's any other major that does that. Now, you have to pair it, in my mind, with the CPA. But you pair that accounting degree with the CPA. I got to teach computer science. I don't have a computer science degree, but with my background and what I had taught and what I had done, I taught computer science for 7 years. I helped to train equine vets in accounting practices. My husband and I have our own business, and I can do the accounting for that. I could be an entrepreneur. There are so many things that you can be with that accounting degree partnered with the CPA. That you don't, one of the things with millennials, I'm sorry, more than 30 seconds, is that they don't know what they want to do and they don't want to do it very long. This is the perfect degree for them because they can do something for a little while, do something else. They're not going to find another degree that does that for them.
I think she summed it up.
There you go. You took a minute and a half for everybody.
I think that was good.
I always actually start some of the presentations, you can make as much money as you want. And it seems to grab their attention right away, and then you kind of lead it into the careers, because for some reason they seem to be sometimes on the money aspect of it. So it always seems to grab their attention and kind of lead into whatever career you want. It's endless. So, well, I want to thank all the panelists today. I'd like to give them a quick.
30 seconds.
Man, I was trying to see what you said.